Imagine a war so devastating that it wiped out entire cities, turned neighbors into enemies, and lasted for 3 whole decades. A war that started as a religious conflict, but soon escalated into a massive European power struggle. This is the story of the 30 Years' War, a conflict that shaped modern Europe and left scars that lasted for centuries. But what triggered this war? Why did it last 30 years? And how did it finally end? Let's dive in. Of course, it's challenging to encapsulate a war that spanned 30 years, but today we'll strive to highlight its most pivotal events. In the early 1600s, Europe was a ticking time bomb. Religious tensions between Catholics and Protestants were at an all-time high. The Holy Roman Empire, which ruled over much of Central Europe, was a divided mess. The emperor was Catholic, but many of the princes and nobles were Protestant, leading to huge conflicts over religious freedom. In the early 17th century was a complex patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, principalities, and city-states. It was far from unified, and most of the continent was under the loose authority of the Holy Roman Empire, a huge but fragmented realm in Central Europe. Since the Protestant Reformation, beginning in 1517, Europe was divided between Catholics and Protestants. The 1555 Peace of Augsburg tried to create a truce by allowing rulers to choose their state's religion, cuius regio, eius religio, but this left many areas with simmering conflicts. The Holy Roman Empire. It was not a unified nation, but a collection of hundreds of semi-independent states, ruled by emperors from the Habsburg dynasty. Many German princes resented the emperor's power and were eager to assert independence. Dynastic rivalries. Powerful families like the Habsburgs, ruling Spain, Austria, and the Empire, and the Bourbons, ruling France, competed for dominance. Economic and social tensions. Trade was booming in some parts of Europe, like the Netherlands, but peasants faced harsh taxes and feudal burdens. There were many small peasant revolts and social unrest. International ambitions. Countries like France, Spain, Sweden, and Denmark all sought to expand their influence, which created an atmosphere where any local conflict could quickly involve powerful neighbors. The breaking point came in 1618 in the Kingdom of Bohemia, modern-day Czech Republic. Protestants were furious that their new ruler, Ferdinand II, was a devout Catholic who aimed to suppress Protestantism. The defenestration of Prague. In a dramatic act of defiance, Protestant nobles stormed a government meeting in Prague and threw 2 Catholic officials out of a window. They survived the 21-meter fall, but this event ignited a war that would consume Europe. 4 phases of destruction. The Bohemian Revolt, 1618 to 1620, began when the Protestants in Bohemia rebelled against Emperor Ferdinand II and crowned Frederick V as their new Protestant king. Ferdinand responded with force, defeating the Bohemians at the Battle of White Mountain in 1620. Bohemia was returned to Catholic control, but the conflict was far from over. This major clash began with the Second Defenestration of Prague in 1618, which sparked the Bohemian Revolt. The uprising spread rapidly across Greater Bohemia, including Bohemia, Silesia, Lusatia, and Moravia. Moravia was already divided by tensions between Catholics and Protestants. The conflict might have stayed local if not for the death of Emperor Matthias. His death emboldened Protestant leaders who had been close to negotiating peace. Both Ferdinand, now officially emperor, and the Bohemians were weakened, allowing the war to expand into Western Germany. Ferdinand sought help from his nephew, King Philip IV of Spain. The Bohemians, seeking allies, tried to join the Protestant Union, led by Frederick V. They promised him the Bohemian crown if he brought them under the Union's protection. Other Bohemian states made similar promises to Carlo Emanuel I, Duke of Savoy, Johann George, Elector of Saxony, and Gabriel Bethlen, Prince of Transylvania. The strong support for the Bohemians, especially in Saxony, showed deep divisions within the Austrian territories. At first, the Bohemians had the upper hand. Many Lutheran and Calvinist nobles in Upper Austria joined the revolt. In 1619, Lower Austria also rose up. Count Thurn's army even besieged Vienna. In the east, Gabriel Bethlen of Transylvania launched a campaign into Hungary, backed by the Ottoman Sultan. The emperor, preoccupied with the Ostkak War, rushed to build an army to stop the Bohemians. Count Bucquoy, leading the imperial army, defeated the Protestant Union's forces under Count Mansfeld at the Battle of Sablot on June 10, 1619. This victory forced Count Thurn to abandon the siege of Vienna and weakened the Protestants' crucial alliance with Carlo Emanuel I. Carlo Emanuel had already sent money and troops to help the Protestants, but after the capture of Mansfeld's field marshal revealed his involvement, he withdrew from the conflict. Despite the setback at Sablot, Count Thurn's army remained strong, and Mansfeld reorganized his forces in northern Bohemia. Upper and Lower Austria, still under rebel control, formally allied with the Bohemians by early August 1619. On August 17, 1619, Ferdinand was officially deposed from the Bohemian throne and replaced by Frederick V. Meanwhile, in Hungary, even though the Bohemians broke their promises about the Hungarian crown, the Transylvanians drove the emperor's forces out by 1620. The Spanish sent an army from Brussels under Ambrosio Spinola to support the emperor. In Vienna, the Spanish ambassador, Don Íñigo Vélez de Oñate, convinced the Protestant Saxons to attack Bohemia in exchange for Lusatia. The Saxons invaded Bohemia, while the Spanish army in the west blocked the Protestant Union's forces from helping the Bohemians. Oñate also schemed to transfer the electoral title from the Palatinate to the Duke of Bavaria in return for his support in that of the Catholic League. The Danish phase, 1625 to 1629. Protestant Denmark, led by King Christian IV, joined the war to help their Protestant allies. However, the Catholic forces, led by the brilliant commander Albrecht von Wallenstein, crushed the Danish army. By 1629, Denmark was forced to sign the Treaty of Lubeck, withdrawing from the war. The Swedish phase, 1630 to 1635. Just when it seemed like the Catholics had won, Sweden entered the war. King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden, a military genius, led his Protestant army to major victories, most notably in the Battle of Breitenfeld, 1631. However, in 1632, at the Battle of Lutzen, Gustavus Adolphus was killed in action. His death was a huge blow, but Sweden continued to fight. The French phase, 1635 to 1648. In a shocking twist, Catholic France entered the war on the Protestant side. Why? Because France, led by Cardinal Richelieu, didn't want the Habsburg Empire, which ruled the Holy Roman Empire and Spain, to become too powerful. This turned the war into a full-scale political struggle rather than just a religious war.
The battles became even more brutal, and by the 1640s, Europe was devastated.
How did it end? After 30 years of chaos, destruction, and millions of deaths, all sides were exhausted. In 1648, the war finally ended with the Peace of Westphalia. This treaty redrew the map of Europe and had lasting consequences. Religious freedom. Protestant and Catholic states were now recognized as equal. The Holy Roman Empire weakened. German states gained more independence, leading to the slow decline of the empire.
The 30 Years' War changed warfare forever. Armies became larger, battles became more destructive, and wars were no longer just about religion. It also laid the foundation for the modern nation-state, where countries ruled themselves without religious interference. But the scars remained. Some areas of Germany lost up to 40% of their population, and it took decades for Europe to recover. So, what started as a religious dispute turned into one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. What do you think? Could a war like this happen again in today's world? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video.